Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay at home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight. Got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet. Cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Good day, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Woo! Hope y'all are thawing out after the past frigid weather stream that came through and froze us all into ice cubes for about a week, maybe longer.
We're in double digits, baby.
We
Oh,
are
yeah.
too. We're above 40 right now. Woohoo!
Nice. We're not above freezing, but we're close. We
Oh,
might get above
gosh.
freezing tomorrow, but
Yeah,
it's
I don't envy you.
it's
If you're
I
not above
love it.
freezing.
I honestly love it. I really, really love it. We went over to it's a place called the Boston School Forest, and it's basically a state park that they do a lot of things, interactions with the schools,
Yeah,
so that you go there to learn about, wood crafting and just all sorts of stuff. But one of the things they do is they have we had our kids out of school the last 2 days, and so they opened up and they got their lodges set up so you can go skiing, you can go sledding, you can make crafts, they have a campfire going, you can make
love that.
s'mores. They have the lodge set up. The FFA came out and they provided a meal. Well, they provided free water and hot chocolate. Okay.
Okay.
But then they provided a meal for $5. Now, I mean, you get what you pay for sometimes, but it was still great for the kids because it was a hot dog and chips, a Capri Sun, and a Rice Krispies treat and a banana.
That's a
Right.
definite kid's lunch right there.
Right. Exactly. And I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, I've got $15 for the three of you because one of my kids didn't want to go, but I don't have $20. I'm afraid I cannot. No, I'm not going to eat that. All of that was just
That's
doesn't
just,
sound good at
I know
all. There's
it wouldn't
nothing.
make it does not make an adult body feel good to even think
No,
about. But for a
no.
kid, like
I'm
they're like
like, a
chishing.
rice. And they sat down and they were thirsty. We went in there originally to get water, sat down and immediately popped those Capri Suns, and just started shooting them. I mean,
Oh
they were,
yeah.
and I'm like, no, because I'm not having anybody
Like a bunch of
vomit
like a bunch
while
of
we're out there.
fraternity and sorority people at the bar,
Right?
man.
Just
Like belly up,
time to
shots for
go.
everyone.
Yeah. But we went skiing. We went cross country skiing. And none of us have been skiing before. So that was a really cool thing. I didn't get to go because one of my kids needs a lot of help with physical stuff. I'm not talking like I don't mean like disabilities, I don't mean like that, but he just isn't a
Coordination.
physical person. Yeah,
Yeah,
he has still has difficulty really tying his shoes well,
sure.
and he's 11, right? So he's getting there. It just takes time. He's always had manual dexterity. He's been a little bit slower for him.
Yeah.
But the lady's like, "You sure you don't want to ski too?" And I'm thinking, I've never been skiing. This kid's going to fall over, and I'm just going to fall on top of him, and that's going to be it. And we're going to leave. And that's just because I will never go back to Boston School for it. Are you the guy that fell down on his kid and almost killed him? No, I'm not. Oh God, we're leaving.
That was a
Right?
different dad.
It's a different dad. Absolutely. It was this
But by
kid's
golly,
other
we're
dad.
trying. Dang it, we'll figure this out. I got
But
some snowshoes. I'll walk beside them. They can
right,
figure it out.
right. And that's what I did. That's what I did. They didn't have snowshoes there, but yeah. But they actually also had, I forgot to mention that they had snowshoe hiking. You could go and just borrow
Cool.
a pair of snowshoes, and they're the new, like, I assume they're aluminum, but the new light frame, modern types and all that. And yeah, it was amazing. It's so much stuff going on, and it was practically all free. I mean, again, the FFA was doing its fundraising there for the meal, but that's $5 is nothing really,
Yeah, I
for
love the
for me.
fact that a state park has those kind of programs for,
Hmm.
people in the area because those are the things that keep a park like that open and going is
Yeah.
having good programs that don't cost a lot of money because, you get all the entertainment and education without like breaking your bank at the same time to do
Hmm.
it. So that's
Right.
awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. I think I saw some of the pictures that you posted for the cross country skiing, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, they finally got to go because I remember that you were talking a couple episodes back that you guys were supposed to do that, but I think it
Yeah.
was because school got canceled. You didn't get to go
Yeah.
on that little trip. So I'm glad you
Too
got to
much
go
weather.
now. Yeah,
And
too much
and
weather.
my fourth grader, who was supposed to go that day, this is all she wanted. I mean,
Oh,
she would have done it. So this is all I want. You know, you could just tell she just missed it. They do get a makeup day, which I wasn't aware of, but
oh, cool.
so I said, yeah, we're the first thing we're going to do is go skiing, and then we'll see. And I mean, I'm getting the kids ready, and I'm working with Marcus because he's taking the longest. Because again, he's just, you know, it's just he
It's
just
all
kind of
good.
clumsy, let's say. And um Fabian goes out and he's first and he's kind of slow, but he's figuring it out because he's, you know, he's 17. He can figure this
I
out
mean, it takes a little bit to
a
figure out
little
how
bit.
to
Yeah.
move all
But
that at
right. And he's
once.
good. He's good. He's not going fast. Lizzie leaves maybe 3 to 5 minutes after and catches him within the first 100 yards.
There's
I
always
mean, she's like,
one.
"Shush, shush, shush." Right? That's what I was thinking. I'm like, of course, it's my daredevil, my fearless child. And she comes back. Now they disappear, and I'm going with Marcus. He falls down, and we take like 5 minutes to get him back up. And then we're going forward, and there's a line of people behind us because he's going so slow. And I'm like, let's go off on the side here. And he gets off to the side, and they're starting to go by. He's like, I just want to go back. I'm like, cool, 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 cool. All right. So we got to baby step the skis, you know,
Uh-huh.
180 degrees and then cross over and get back. We get over and we come back. I'm getting his skis off, you know, and Lizzie shows up. I mean, she's coming down the trail because they left us because, I mean, how they couldn't wait. They were gone out of sight on one of the
Yeah.
longest trails, and she's coming back, and Fabian is not. Right. And I'm like,
Like I left him back there.
exactly. And she did. She goes, I told him to keep up. And she just comes in. She goes, I want to go again. I'm like, no, I can't. I have to see you with an adult. You can't leave
I want to
Fabian.
I want to go lap my brother. I'll be right back.
Right. Yeah. That's
I'll
what I
make him
was thinking.
feel
You want to
make him
laugh?
feel even worse.
Right. And Fabian comes back and he's pissed. He's like, I told her to stop several times. I told her, don't pass me, don't go. And she just took off and she wouldn't wait, Dad. And I'm like, you're not in trouble. Okay. I know how this child is. And you're right. She does not listen when you tell her to stop or slow down. And it was not your fault at all. But he was so mad because she wouldn't listen. And he doesn't want to have kids. Right. But I looked at him and I said, if you ever somehow adopted a child or something and had a child in your life, this is what they do.
Yep.
Okay. This is what you have to. This is why people have children when they're young, because when you get older, you cannot catch them. They just disappear.
Don't hold my fun drum back because it ain't gonna work. All right, like that thing beats to its own rhythm. That's what that
Bingo.
is. Oh
But
my
yeah, but
goodness,
it was
that's
great.
hilarious.
It was great. Yeah.
That sounds a lot like Ruby. Ruby's like that.
Yeah.
She would just
Cool.
take off and go do something, and
Yeah.
but Hezekiah is like that, but he just totally like forgets that he's with people. So like we've been
Yeah.
out on a on a bike trail before, and I was running, and I was like, oh, I can run and they can bike, and it'll be no big deal. Well, Hezekiah took that as a personal challenge to see just how far he could go, and also forget that he has working ears. And so
Yeah.
the first time that we did it, like he was gone. Like I didn't even see him. And I'm like, holy crap, like there are people on this trail. Like like
Yeah.
Ruby's with Corey, and they're back there, and she's like, I can't catch him. Like, there's no way. Like, I mean, he just took off like lightning. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I'll run up there and see what I'm doing. And I had to ask somebody that was a biker that was coming towards me. I'm like, hey, did you see a little boy by himself just in his glory, like taking off?
Right.
And then and that biker was like, yeah, I saw him. He's up there a ways. And I'm like, great. So then I had another, so then I had another bicyclist who was coming behind me. And I was like, hey, if you see a little boy by himself, just having his own little like party type of deal, like on the, trail, just enjoying life. I was like, can you tell him that Dad said he needs to turn around and come back? And the biker was like on it and like ended up catching him. And he was up there, like I'd say probably at least a quarter of a mile from me. Yeah, he really got away. So the next
Man.
time we went out, I hooked the freaking walkie-talkie to him.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Excellent.
I don't
Excellent.
like we didn't have the smartwatches at that time, but I was like,
Hmm.
I have a 5 mile walkie-talkie, and by God, I'm gonna use that thing. I was like,
Right? Put that
strapped
thing to
it to him.
use.
I'm like, if you hear me, like, say come back or stop, I was
I,
like, you better freaking do it.
I seriously, I have looked at the idea of, and I would never do this, of course, but the idea of having a dog shock collar around their wrist
You only got
and
so much. You only got so
just
much radius
it's
on those.
and that's it. That's it. My brother-in-law's like, yeah, I got one for the dog, but no, the kids will get too far away. There's no way it would work. And I'm like, have you tried it? What are you talking? He goes, no, just logistically, it wouldn't work. I never would have do that to my kid. And I'm like, did you put that shock collar on your kid once? Because like you said, their ears stop working. It's
Oh,
like they're just gone and they do not care what they hear, what they're going there. And for me too, I'm always, because I have anxiety, I'm always worried my kids are going to get abducted or eaten by a mountain lion or fall in the lake or, hit by a moose. I mean, just ridiculous stuff. There's no
yeah,
way these things are going to happen, right? But I'm still just in a panic,
yeah.
and they take off and I have to actually do my breathing exercises. And it's really funny because every time I get around them and like one kid takes off and I'm like, don't, come back. I yell to them. I know they heard me. They keep going. It's usually Lizzie. And I'll be hyperventilating. Right. And my oldest, he'll be like, I didn't know you were that fat. I'm like, I'm not. I mean, I
Oh,
am, but I'm
dude.
not. This is just I have to control my breathing because my anxiety is choking me because this kid has, like you
Yeah.
said, disappeared.
Hmm.
And they'll be a quarter mile, and I won't let them go on their bikes unless I'm on a bike. I would not try to keep up with a bike. They have too much momentum. They have too much,
Yeah.
downhill. They're going to leave you. And I've told them before, like, well, we could just go. Nope, nope. We're either all walking or all biking. I cannot deal with this in between thing because
Yep.
they would lap you. They
Oh
would come
yeah.
around the thing and they would come back and like, hey, Dad. I'm like, I do not like that you're behind me now.
Jeez.
Need you to slow down. So,
Yeah, they get it's like one of those things, how like people get angry and people talk about like blood fills up in your ears, like you just kind of that's
mhm.
all your this thing. It's like fun fills up in their ears and that's all
Yeah,
they're like,
that's all they
woohoo,
know.
time of my life.
And honestly, I love that, because that's what you want. You want them experiencing life at 100% and the joy and the
Yeah.
excitement, but they don't think about the danger. They don't think about the risk. And that's why they have parents, I guess, to go like, no, 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 do not jump off that. Do not jump off that. No, a trash bag is not going to slow you down. It is not a
Yeah.
parachute. You will
Well,
hit the ground and break an ankle.
I mean, this is sort of a sore subject here in Cincinnati, but I think it falls right in line with it because actually there was a documentary that just came out on it. The whole incident with Arambe, the gorilla at the zoo from
Yeah.
a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
That kid was like 3 years old and all he wanted to do was play with that gorilla. And I'm pretty sure he was all like, I'm on it, like, and got over the fence. And then eventually when got down there was like, oh crap, what did I just do? Because
Yeah. This
and
is a
so
very large creature.
and those are the kind of like that was the thing. Like, yes, there's a part you're like, what are the parents doing? But at the same time, you're like, that
Mhm.
kid, like, he saw what he wanted to do and he was going for it, and it didn't
Yeah,
matter who was yelling at him, like to
exactly.
stop. Like he was on a mission.
Hmm.
And
And
that
you
was
get that, I think, if you're an involved parent,
oh
you
yeah.
get that. Like you see a kid screaming down the bike trail on a bike and no adults around him, okay,
Hmm.
this isn't a bad parent. This is a parent that has screamed and yelled and instructed and loved and encouraged
Yeah.
and everything they could, and the kid just like, nah, I'm gonna go that way.
Well, and those parents had other kids there with them too. I think there were 3 kids total. And
Hmm.
so from what I've heard from the story was that they were dealing with something with those 2 kids, and the other one was like, well, you got it. I'm out. It was
Right, right.
like I got my
You
own personal business to take care of.
Exactly. You guys handle that family stuff. I'm going to go visit the gorilla.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
crazy. And that's the thought. That's where they're at. And it is that 1 second.
Yeah.
It's like you look away and you turn around and they're hugging a gorilla. What? Why are you doing this? Right?
Exactly.
Let's look when you see them put something in their mouth, especially when they're two, three. I mean, it doesn't exist if they haven't had their mouth on it. Right? I mean, it's just they
Right.
have to touch everything with their tongue, and it's disgusting. And that's why
Yep.
we always get sick when we have kids. And you'll turn around and you'll look back and it's like, what is in your mouth? What is in your mouth right now? And of course, they take off. They're not going to give it back to you. They're like,
No.
no, no, I got this. I'm out like a dog.
Yeah. Well, and it's so different too. Like, you have that incident with kids, and then you have adults who are mindfully climbing into, zoo enclosures back, I've
Mhm.
heard one recently, but there was one a few years ago around that same time where I think somebody over like in Singapore or something decided to like climb into like a tiger exhibit or something, and you're
Yeah.
like, and dies, and everybody's like, yeah, I kind of knew that was coming.
Uh-huh.
I don't like one, you can say, okay, hey, their kid, like that's for an adult, you're like, they made a choice. Like they
Hmm.
they made a very conscious
Bingo.
choice to go in there. It's much different.
Exactly.
They're
Exactly.
they don't have a parent right at the moment when they're like 30 years old telling them you probably shouldn't do this.
Hmm.
So yeah, I tell you that's what keeps you on your toes as a parent. You just don't know
Hmm.
what sometimes they're gonna do. And I think sometimes people need to not have knee-jerk reactions to uh
Yeah.
kids doing stuff like that, because that's one of those, like, those are kids being kids. Like,
Hmm.
the parents aren't bad or anything like that. It's just that
And
that kid had the
and
mission.
people that say, I would never let my kid do that,
Oh
whatever it
gosh.
is, whatever they're talking about, I always think, do you think they let their kid do that first? You don't realize that kids just have their own free will and do whatever the heck they want and don't
Right.
care what you say. They just don't care. There's nothing you can do, nothing you can say. They're going to go do that thing.
No, they don't have
And
that cognitive reasoning
mhm,
going on in their
yeah,
head to understand, like, oh, like they're telling me this because of XYZ thing. All they're like is, you're keeping me from doing this thing, and I don't understand why you're not letting me do it. To me, it looks like fun. I don't see this
right.
other side. Like, you call it danger, I call it fun.
Hmm.
We're not connected. Like, there's a
Yeah.
disconnect here, mom and
Yep.
dad.
You have no ability to protect yourself. You don't know what right or wrong is, much less danger. Just like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, well, like kids that touch hot things.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just like it's one of those things. Like, especially if you start cooking with your kids and they get a little bit older, of course. And like I had Lizzie when she was 7, I think, got her little step stool so she could get up beside me and help me make cookies or whatever we're doing, something simple that she could. And then she said, "I want to help you cook dinner." And I'm
Hmm.
like, well, that would be great. I think you need to learn how to cook. You need to learn how to cook dinner. And yeah, let's go. And I told her, I said, this pan is very hot. This is the turner, spatula, spoon, whatever we had. And this is the handle. And this is the only place you can touch this pan. You
Yeah.
touch it anywhere else, it's bad. All right. And she's moving around. Of course, it's difficult for her because her manual dexterity and all that. And she's moving it around and she reaches over and literally grabs the pot and yanks her hand off immediately, of course, and I'm like, yeah. She's like, she looks at it and it's no, it's just like maybe like a first-degree burn. It's not, she took it off really fast. It only took some water. It wasn't a big deal, but she
Right.
took it off fast enough. And she's looking at it and it's reddened a little bit. And she said, you told me not to do that. Like, and I'm like, yes, yes, I did. And I need you to tell the police or DFAX or whoever shows up at the house and asks how you got this burn. You need to say, Dad told me not to, but I
Uh-huh.
accidentally did it. Right.
Exactly.
It's just hilarious. They
Exactly.
have no, well, they're learning everything.
Yeah.
So it's
No,
not a
definitely.
bad thing.
That one is always interesting to me. Like, well, the other thing too, like, how the whole phrase, like, it takes a village, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I feel like, a lot of times when I'm out in public with my kids or whatever, um, and I kind of see they're got their thing going on, but I'm like always head on a swivel, like, what other things are going? Because I mean, I've seen where, like, you know, you got neighbor Sally up on the playground, and all of a sudden, like, she's on the edge looking, and you're like, oh, don't do it. And you like take a couple steps closer, and you're like, she's thinking about it, don't do it. And you take a couple more steps closer. Next thing you know, like, you got Sally in your arms, and mom's like, what? It's like,
Hmm.
like, I don't fault you, mom. But your
No.
kid's a daredevil.
Yeah. Right.
Like that kind of thing. I mean, and it's one of those deals where too, it's like you don't go out of your way. You're like, oh, like, I'm looking for this as far as, like, if I catch this kid, I'm gonna, like, discipline them or something along those lines. It's like I'm just trying to keep them from harming themselves or hurting
Yep.
somebody else. And it's like just enough to be like, hey, where's your mom and dad? Like,
Hmm.
like, here, and then going from there. I think that that's you have parents that are like that can play, I guess, what you would call like a zone defense. And then you
Mhm.
have the ones who are just hyper focused on their own kids. And that's no fault of them. Maybe they
Right.
need that hyper focus type of deal
Yeah.
because especially if you're a parent of just one, you don't even know what zone defense even is as a
Mm-mm.
parent a lot of times.
Yeah.
But I think that you know, I just see that so often. Like I'll be out at like a baseball game or something like that, and one kid bolts off from their parents in like a crowd or whatever, and I'm like, I just happen to be in the area. I'm like, hey, and like stop, and like you just see like the parents like immediately and just shock and horror, like looking around, like where did little Timmy go? And it's like, I
Right.
got him, like he's right
Yep.
here.
He's right here.
And the parents are like, oh my gosh. I'm always like, it takes a village. It's all good. Like we're
Mhm.
all parents. We're in this together. If you
Right.
if you're
Yes.
somebody who's really attuned to the fact that you're like, I get it, these kids are like little cats who just, oh, look, there's a laser pointer. And they're everywhere.
Right. Right. And they're gone.
And they're
They're
gone.
gone.
Exactly. I saw something shiny. I'm taking
Hmm.
off after it.
Exactly. I remember the first time, and I only had two kids at the time, and I told we had friends at the playground, and I told my friend's kid, I'm like, "Oh, you went on the monkey bars. That's great." And he scaled across them and what have you. And I'm like, "That's amazing." And Fabian's like, "Dad, I can go across the monkey bars too." I'm like, "Great, kid. Let me see you." And I'm holding the baby, right? Because James was so little, was like a toddler at most. So, and Fabian runs up, goes up the ladder, climbs up on the top of the monkey bars, and runs across them. And I remember this moment specifically because of my brain not processing what this child is actually doing. I mean, there's just no place in my brain where anybody with any sense or a sense of self-preservation would run across the top of the bars. Now he did it. He did it without even, slowing down. He just and then he crawled down and he goes, ta-da! And I'm like, we have to go home now. We have
Yeah.
to go home now because one, I need to have a heart attack. And two, I held my baby so tight, I think I made him vomit. And three, all the parents here think I'm a moron. Everybody here is looking at me going, why would you let your kid do that? Because that's a natural reaction for so many people. And I'm thinking, I would
Translation.
never,
Yeah. Yeah.
never let my kid do
Translation of what kids say and do versus what parents think they're saying and what they're about to do is probably one of the biggest disconnects. Because
that.
yeah, he's like, I can go across the monkey bars. You're like, oh yeah, you're gonna use your arms. No, I'm going all the way to the top.
Right.
I'm going bridge across. Like we're like screw this hanging part. Like I've got a different way that
That's
doesn't
right.
allow me to just not make it because I can't hang on because I'm not tight enough. I'm going
Hmm.
to the top.
Yep.
Yeah, well, like I said, like, that disconnect there, you get kids who say things that don't match up to, like wording and stuff like that. I was listening to a TikTok where the kid was like, "Yeah, yesterday was so great. We went to what did he say the name of the place was? It was something lake or something like that." And he's like, "We didn't go to a lake. It's the middle of winter. What are you talking about?" He keeps going on talking about this, and the the dad goes, "I had to call in my kid's interpreter, which is my like my oldest, to talk to them to figure out what it was." And like he's standing there and they're having a conversation, and then he like the oldest like turns to him and is just like, "Yeah, he's talking about when we went to Chipotle yesterday."
Chipotle. Well, Chipotle,
Yeah,
Chipotle, maybe, maybe.
something like that. It was hilarious though, and I'm like, that is so true.
Hmm.
It's like, what are they saying? Because Hezekiah and Ruby were like that when they were little. Like I was like,
Hmm.
what does Ruby say? I cannot understand what she's saying. And Hezekiah is like, oh, I can interpret that. And I'm like, great. Tell me
Nice.
what she's talking about.
I'm glad one of us can.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sometimes you just gotta lean in on the kids a little bit and be like, show me what you're doing here. What's going on?"
Hmm.
Oh, but yeah, so that, it's always something. That's what keeps us on our toes.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, why you should have kids young. You just need to be faster. You need to have more stamina than these guys.
I'll tell you, in this day and age, man, I mean, I feel like it's like you could be become a parent at very old ages. Like it's like, there's a very broad stroke on the age gap,
Yeah.
which is great. Like, hey, if it works for you, that's it's
If
all
we
good.
had not had, if I had not had a vasectomy, we would have another baby.
Yeah.
And it would be the stupidest, most ignorant decision I'd ever made in my life because just over the holiday, spending time with my two little nephews and they're, 2 and 3 or something like that, I was done. And it cured me. I'm like, no, I don't want a baby anymore. No, I'll
Yeah.
hold a baby, I'll take care of it, but I do not want a baby. And
Yep. Get your
and and
baby fixed and
Marnie's
give it back.
Marnie's been this way for like 10 years, 9, 10 years or so. She's like, no, we're not having another one. Nah, no, it's not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Yep.
Four's enough.
Oh, so we were watching Bluey the other day, and there's this episode that I thought hit really close to home for parents, especially dads, because you got bandits driving the car, and the kids are in the back, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and he just makes the comment of like, "Oh, I feel so old," and the kids are like, "We're sorry, Dad," and he's like, "Yeah, but you also make me feel young," and they're like, "How can you feel old and young at the same time?" And he's
I
just like,
understand.
and he just goes, "You just do." Like he didn't really go into an explanation on it. And the kid's like, "Okay." And it's like, yeah, I mean, there are times where your body feels old, but then like you feel young because you get to do a lot of the fun things with the kids as well.
Hmm.
And so there's both sides. Or you get to experience something as a parent that you didn't get to experience as a kid, Like there's a
Yes.
lot of that too.
Yes. Which
So
is, I mean, experiencing things through the eyes of your child
yeah,
is take a kid to one of those, either a water pad or a fountain, like if they have it at the park or the town square where they have a fountain that pops up, and hearing them laugh while that
mm-hmm.
fountain is, shooting water every once in a while and they get wet and they're not wet. And it is the most delightful thing that I've experienced probably in my life. I
Yeah,
mean, just their sheer joy. And that to me is one of the main reasons why I love kids so much, because
yeah,
they do have that. The same way as they have no fear of things, they're not worried about enjoying themselves too much or being seen as having too much fun or,
yeah,
just being exuberant. And a lot of times as adults, we kind of pull ourselves back a little bit. We don't want to admit that something just delights us. Now, I don't have a problem with it. But I am the fountain. I am just bubbling over with the joy when I even there, right? But seeing that and watching them do it and allowing yourself to feel that with them
yeah.
is one of the greatest parts of being a parent, I think.
Yeah, I think too when you're able to, you know, basically like, all right, like I didn't have these experiences as a kid for whatever reason, and there are multiple reasons for it, but we're gonna make this something special and go and do it. And then, you're like all this 2020 vision insight into like, oh, like this was better than I expected it was going to be, like that kind of thing. Like that's, I think one of the reasons why you see so many families now, striving to go on road trips or, trying to do other special things in their families' lives and stuff like that, and just
Hmm.
the pure joy of it. And I think back in the day, like a lot of families, it would have been like, oh, this is gonna be really hard. And now you got, where it's like parents are like, no, we can do this. Like we can make this work, and it'll be fun. I think that's one of the cool things I like to see come up in conversation in like the Facebook group or even in Discord too, is you've got
Hmm.
dads who are like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this road trip," or "Has anybody ever been to this place? And what was your experience like? Because I really want to take my family there." And it's probably
Hmm.
one of the coolest, like I guess technological things is the fact that you don't have to do as much like research. Like you can just, you know, knock
Yep.
on the door to the hive and be like, "Hey, who raise your hand, who in here's done this?" And then have a conversation and get all kinds of great inside information
Yes.
that allows you to enjoy things. Like, what shouldn't I miss? What should I miss? Like on this
Hmm.
trip kind of thing.
Right. Like, I heard about this. Is it worth it? No, do not go down there. They do not actually have a ball of twine. It's a joke. They just, just want your money or whatever. And those things that you will fall for if
Oh
someone
yeah.
doesn't tell you. You know, it's almost like having a local friend. Like, oh, you live there? Yeah, let me just pick your brain a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's that way, I think, about everything. You know, I'm thinking about getting my kids a smartwatch. You know, I'm thinking about getting my kids a Garmin watch so that I can track him or whatever. What's that like? And you have
Yeah.
people that literally have one and like, oh yeah, don't do this because the invisible fence thing doesn't actually work. It doesn't alert you. It just lets them go out, but it doesn't send you an alert. It just shows red on the screen. You have to be looking at it.
Yeah.
And you know those little tips and tricks. And I love because in the past you look at mom communities and there were a lot of mom wars. There was a lot of infighting, and this is the
Hmm.
best and only way to train your child or teach your child or adjust your child's whatever. But with dads, a lot of times it's, you know, I did it this way and this is what it worked for my kid.
Yeah.
And it's just a suggestion, it's a tip. And someone else looks at it and goes, well, that's great, but my kid has, I don't know, my kid likes to wear hats, so it's not going to work, whatever. But are able to work with whoever you're talking to, and they're really open and giving. You know, they want to help you have a great experience. It's almost like I said about having a local tour guide or something. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, and too, like you know, talking about technology and the whole like smartwatch thing, like
Hmm.
you know, I remember back when I was going to Dad 2.0 and we were having conversations with Bark Technology and just all of
Yeah.
the different like things that they were doing. And it's been interesting, like keeping in touch like through Instagram. Like they've been really good about sharing great stuff to parents about what's going on in the technology world because like they ended up basically branding their own phone for kids. So
Oh,
like
really?
they have a Bark, yeah, Bark has its own phone that you can get. And
Huh.
so it's, you know, combined with their technology that allows for, you know, tracking what your kids are involved in and stuff. And just that's really big, or just their technology just to put things like on, you know, if say you've already gotten them a phone or they have a tablet or whatever, like there's just the app and what it does as far as like being able to just give your kids the freedom, but at the same time, like, you know, kind of staying in the know on what, you know, what is going on. But along with that, they are really doing some amazing things in the fashion of even just like, hey, like for instance, iPhone just had an update. Did you know that this app got added to your phone without you knowing it? And I even me, like I mean, I have had an iPhone forever, and it's like, you know, I just blindly like, all right, you need to update my phone or whatever. And
Yeah,
they're
just
like,
go.
yeah, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's this new app, and this one's called Journal." And I had seen like the thing, like when they showed it, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, like I saw that. I didn't know where that came from." And then you hear about like, "Oh well, it does this, this, and this, but it also allows you for your kids to put things behind a block wall that they are the only ones that have a password to it." And I'm like, "Well, that's not no what what
Right.
is that like?" And so you know, just you don't know until you have somebody that's, you know, done the footwork to be able to see it. And I still to this day get people who reach out to me and are like, "Hey, you were involved with Bark Technologies in the day. Like, do you still have like a, a referral code or anything for like a deal?" And I'm like, "I have one. I don't know if it works or not. I've
Yeah.
I, so but yeah, it's like I don't even remember like who I gave it. Was it to you I gave it to last? I don't know. It wasn't you. It was somebody else.
Nope. I
Somebody
got
reached.
mine from Orlando. I think
Oh,
it was
that's
Orlando. It
yeah.
was Orlando that they
Or not
had a
Orlando.
presentation. Orlando or anyway, one of the
I think
conventions.
it was Minneapolis, maybe. But
Or DadCon at home. You know, I've
that's
been
what it
to too
was.
many.
It was DadCon at home. That was what it was DadCon at
Okay.
home. Um, but yeah, so like they have a code or whatever for being able to get like a discount on the membership and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, those those are things where they're worth checking out, especially, you know, if you're looking at those things, because it kind of gives you a little peace of mind when you decide to kind of level up as a parent. Like,
Hmm.
all right, like we're gonna bring technology into our kids' lives, but how do I do this to where I don't like have an aneurysm from all of the
Right.
anxiety?
Right. And the reality of how easy it is for your kid to hide stuff from you
Yeah.
on a phone. And not just the thing that you mentioned with that app, but just in general. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
my my 17-year-old has, that I know of, 5 email accounts.
Dang.
And why? Some of them are very legit. He has the account that I made for, like, for all the kids having that account, and that's fine. He made his own account with his new name, um, and that's fine. Okay, and then he's got 3 other ones that are possibly fine, and of course, there's always the potential that they're absolutely not fine. And we've gone over them. I've talked to him about them and we've gone through it. But he had them before I ever knew he did,
Oh, wow.
because you just get it. I want a new email address, and you just go get one. Gmail will give you as many email addresses as you want,
Oh,
probably,
yeah. Yeah.
So, and I'm like, I can't, stop you from doing this, but I want you to understand, this is something that I don't want you to hide from me. Because
Yeah.
if I discover you're hiding things from me, then one, we're going to investigate the whole thing together, sitting right beside each other on the couch, and it'll be embarrassing as it could possibly be. And then second, I will take away all your access.
Mhm.
Don't there's no, it's for me, it's binary. It's,
Yeah.
you're doing well and you're safe with it, or you're not doing it when it comes to the cell phone and,
Yeah.
on
Well,
being online.
and that's the thing with the Bark technology side of it is you can actually put all that stuff into their thing and it'll actually track it for, specific wording or dangerous
Yeah,
phrases, that kind of thing, to be able to, say, hey, like, saw this pop up, just wanted to check in with you and see what's going on, kind of thing, and have a conversation versus like, give me your phone and let me, like, go all
right,
CIA on it. Like, this is
right, right.
a much gentler approach to it. So
Hmm.
I, for me, like, this is kind of touched really close to home, not with my kids in general, but I got a phone call yesterday telling me from my mom called me and said that, hey, have you seen on Facebook anything about one of your high school friends? And I was like, no, what happened? And one of their like, so this high school friend, his oldest harmed himself and ended his life, and
Oh,
he was 16. And it was just really hard to hear because it's like, for me, I was sad, and then I felt really angry from the standpoint, I'm like, the amount of times that we've all been talking about mental health and how we're trying to make that a easy conversation, and all the time that people have taken to try to, basically say, like, it's okay to, like, talk about these difficult things, and still, like, you have, even kids that are just not feeling comfortable to be able to have those conversations or whatever it is. And of course, I don't know the whole story behind it or whatever, but it's just like, man, like, you just feel for these parents and these kids who basically kind of are become like victims to like society's like negative talk and things going on and things like that. I'm just like,
hmm,
for me, like, I'm just like, as a parent who doesn't have a kid that's that old but is getting into, like, kind of into that age bracket, I'm just like, how can I have those conversations? Or, like, what is it? And it's so like, fostering that relationship, and trying to continue that. But at the same time, it's like, you can't just like drag it out of them, like, what's going on. They need to feel that it's safe. And I don't know, like, for me, like, I remember yesterday just kind of sitting in this, like, how am I gonna how am I gonna navigate the next few years, and what does that look like to have those conversations? And like, the one thing I was like, well, like, we've kind of already started talking to them about, like, you are 100% able to come talk to us about anything, and
hmm,
no, you don't have to worry about, retribution or anything like that. Like, we just, if you're dealing with something hard, we want to be able for you to say what it is. And I think that too, like, even saying, like, maybe there's like a code word or something, and that code word means, like, I'm going to tell you something, and like, we're in Switzerland, like, like,
yes.
and maybe that's the word Switzerland, I don't know. But it just, that whole idea of, like, I'm gonna tell you something, might be a confession, whatever it is, but it means also too that when I tell you this, like, I'm not getting in trouble for it because it needs to be said kind of deal, and we can
Yeah.
talk it out. And I mean,
Yeah.
there's different parameters to that, but I think that that is something I'd like to see something like that actually be a topic of conversation, maybe at home dad con for a breakout session of just like for maybe some of the guys who have been through that. Like what did you how did you base it? How did you formulate it? How did you, you know, proceed to activate that within your family and what's been the outcome from it?
Hmm.
Um, because I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, my oldest is going to turn 11 here in a couple of weeks, and it's like I got 2 more years before he becomes a teenager. But I'm not going to wait until he actually crosses that line for me to then all of a sudden start being like, oh, I gotta do these things. Like, no, like I want to be proactive and get ahead of it before it actually starts really, taking hold. And at 11, I mean, I feel like kids are like what he is at 11 or what kids are at 11 is like kind of what kids were back when we were younger at like 15 in some ways with some of the
I
things
agree.
you're just like holy crap, like, it's like because even my 8-year old, um Corey and I've had this conversation multiple times. It's like, 8-year old girls around that time period, like they could end up, you know having their period like and starting their menstrual cycles at 8. And
Wow.
that is
Yeah.
mind blowing to me because, um, it's like I think about the fact that, I mean, there was a 10-year-old girl here in Ohio a couple years ago who was raped by like her family or whatever and was pregnant. It was like,
Mm.
she's 10. Like,
Mm.
it's just so just things like that. Like, it's just I feel like as a proactive parent and that it's just important to kind of be thinking ahead of the game. You don't have to get like overly like crazed by it, but just all right, what things are we putting in parameter? And so I mean, you got kids of all all ages from that, so I'm sure you're dealt with some of it too.
Yeah. It's been a very, very, well, we make it, I think, more sensitive than it needs to be. We worked pretty hard with the family, but the reality of it is when it comes to menstruation, I only know what I've read,
Right.
right? I don't know what I'm talking about. I really don't. I don't know the day to day. I don't understand it, as well as any woman that's gone through it,
Yeah.
or any man for that matter. So looking at what, like to teach my daughter, and I look at it, I'm like, you're too young. You're not going to worry about it for another couple of years. No, Marnie smartly, wisely said, no, I'm already talking to her about it.
Mm-hmm.
And just so she knows what happens and that it's natural and normal and nothing crazy happens. It's going to be an emotional time. Probably it's going to be an unsettling time,
Yeah.
because it's such a huge change. But I've prepped her, and Marnie's fortunately taken care of that. And she's obviously way better at that than I could be. And just being prepared,
Yeah.
and talking about things that before I had kids, I never talked about poop. I never talked about pooping. I never admitted that I did it. I wouldn't do it in public. I've been anal retentive my whole life, and I would find a secret spot. I was a shy pooper, I wouldn't even say the word. Really, I wouldn't. And now it's just like poop, 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 poop. What? Nobody's going to be hurt by that. I'm going to get a sign in my bathroom. I'm looking to get a sign made that is a P and then a long line, like a piece of wood, and another P at the other end, and the toilet paper rolls are the O's,
I love
right?
it.
And it's going to be poop. Let's go. And just own it, right? And the reason I bring that up is because, and not menstruation is anything like pooping, but menstruation is such a natural, normal, common, everyday thing. And we make it, a lot of people make it into this huge thing that you can't even talk about. Like men that can't even go buy, pads or tampons
Yeah.
for their wife. And I'm like, what? I carry them in my day pack. I have a small little, we call it the football. It's got tampons and pads in it, and
Yeah.
they're technically for my family. But if a woman said, I've got to go, I'm like, well, I have some, and we call it the football. I think I said that, but well, I give you the football. You take it and do what you need to do, and bring it back to me. And I don't.
Yeah.
Why is it a thing? It obviously it is a thing. There's a lot more to it, but the reality is yeah, it's a thing. Let's just do it. Let's take care of it.
Yeah. I
We're
think that that's
caretakers.
like don't make the normal things weird. That's
Hmm.
probably, like that's the basis behind that. Like
Mhm.
that, because kids ask questions
Yeah.
and you don't want to be like, I don't want to answer that. Like you can answer
Right.
it and you can answer it in a way that it's the information they need to know without going too deep into it.
Hmm.
And if they have more questions, just kind of you play it by ear. You
Yeah.
only need to answer what they ask. Like you don't need to
Ask
make it
them
more.
why they asked that question.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
what I've learned is the wisest thing I think anybody's ever told me is, yeah, that's a great question. What makes you ask that?
All right.
And a lot of times it's nothing like we were making it. They were just like, well, Timmy at school said girls lay eggs. He did. Okay, well,
Yeah.
they don't. So no, that is not what happens. And leave it at that. You don't have to go any further. Just satisfy their question, and maybe their curiosity is good, and
I think for
walk
me, I'd
away.
probably want to know more. Like, so how did that conversation come up?
Right.
Who was saying that?
Wait, who said that?
Yeah, where? Because yeah, it's like the Chipotle Lake thing, It's like that's what that comes down to. Like,
Yep, I need to know more. I need to understand how
I
this train of thought. And it could very well be in my that situation. Well, that's what his parents told him. Because it
yeah.
was just one of those things where you're like, no, I can't explain menstruation to you. I cannot
Well,
exchange
think about
childbirth. I'm just gonna back off and say they lay eggs.
think of all of the generations whose parents told their kids, if you kiss a boy, if you're a girl, if you kiss a boy, you'll become pregnant.
You get pregnant.
And just that, how that has been something that went through multiple generations
Yes.
just because somebody didn't want to have a actual conversation
Yeah.
about reproduction.
Hmm.
I mean, that's the simplicity of it all, really. Like, you, you make up your own little story and like that takes off like wildfire. Some other parent like, oh, that's a great way to do it. Like,
Hmm.
no, it's not.
No,
that,
not.
that is
Not.
that is detrimental, and we have seen how that has been the case
Right.
throughout society. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we have that with just all of our conversations with our kids too. I mean, just having the ability to just, okay, let's answer that. And then if they have, something else, keep going on. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, you know, parenting is an ever-changing day-to-day thing. And
Hmm.
I think that having these kind of conversations, one, it's nice to be able to have that conversation with somebody else who's like willing to do it, but at the same time too, it's nice to be able to even just get around other people and have it, or hey, I heard this conversation, and take it to your partner, spouse, and basically say, I was listening to this podcast and they were
Hmm.
talking about this. Like we've never actually discussed this before, and
Yeah.
doing
And it's
that.
time. It's time
Yeah.
to discuss it. You need to do it now.
Yeah, don't wait.
Your kids are
Yeah.
growing faster than you think.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
will say too, you talk about how difficult this can be. And every time we have a conversation, and if I think everybody listening knows that you edit the podcast.
Hmm.
And one of the things that you do is you make a synopsis and you make a title. And every time we have a conversation, I think, how is Brock going to figure out a succinct way to cover all of the crap that I rabbit trailed all over? And we were talking about this and this and this. And how are these related? Well, it's all parenting pretty much, maybe. Yeah.
In
And
its own
every
way.
time I think, man, I'm giving Brock more work this week. I'm just gonna have but we need to talk about this, right? And it has nothing to do with really what we were talking about 5 minutes ago, but it's fine. It's fine.
Hey,
But I
this
think
one will
about that
be
every
like
week.
this one will be like skiing through life and leveling up. See, I did it right there. I got
Yeah,
it from
there
the
you go.
beginning to the
Bingo. It
end.
was genius. I saw it. I saw you. I just was there and you
Just
plucked it out of the air and like, here it is.
bing.
This is the title.
I love. Hey, you know what? I've got a little bit of a talent. I won't not say that. So it,
Hmm.
it comes in handy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the ADHD is what it is.
Yeah. That does make a lot of things easier, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe
it's the
that's the
same.
word.
It's the same thing with at work when I'm at the brewery. I always tell the head brewer, I'm like, hey, if you ever can't come up with the name of a beer, come find me. I'm sure if I sit here on it for a bit, I can probably come up with something. And that's what
Yeah.
happened this week, actually. we had an Imperial Mocha Stout, and the head brewer was like, I cannot for the life of me come up with a name. And I'm like, we can do some sort of pun based off of the mocha. Like we can make this work. And I immediately, like, I took a drink of it and I was sitting there for a few minutes and I was like, for whatever reason, Dirty Harry popped into my head. And I was like, mocha my day, punk. And so, so we named the beer Mocha My Day.
Oh, oh, that is awesome and terrible.
Hey, man, that's what happens.
It's great. It's perfect. It's also terrible.
The best part was is when I looked it up on Untapped, nobody had ever named a beer that, and I was like, yes.
Got it. Right.
Or any variation of it. I'm like, how did nobody come up with this?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's great.
Oh goodness. Well, I think we should probably end it there before it gets
Yeah,
too
that's a
much
good
into the weeds.
end on a high note. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk to everybody next week. I hope you all have a good one. And yeah, see y'all later.
Good night, everybody.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.